I will be presenting my case study on my client Mark. Mark is not his actual name, however, it is his pseudonym that I will be using for this case study. My client Mark is an active 20-year-old male. He lives with his mother and younger brother, whom is also on the autism spectrum. Mark's parents are divorced and he only sees his father on occasion. Mark holds a primary diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. However, he has also been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, behavior disorder, a sleeping disorder, anxiety, a seizure disorder that is actually fairly new and it is onset with his age. And lastly, he has some GI issues that he is currently in the middle of having diagnosed. My client is on a few daily medications, and these are Depakote, he takes for aggression. He takes this twice daily. Lamictal for seizures that he takes in the morning. Clonidine, which is for anxiety, which is morning and night. Rosarum for sleeping, which is for night. Giodin for bipolar and behavior, which is morning and night. Sina for GI, which is at night, and Docalax for his GI as well, and he takes that every other day. Mark is primarily non-vocal in the sense of using words to communicate. He is very vocal in the way of using sounds to communicate and loves when we mimic him. He does use an AAC device to communicate with us when he needs his wants and needs met. He does have a very limited sign repertoire, though he does have a majority of the basic signs met that he uses when he wants to communicate those needs to us. Mark has two main behaviors that we keep data on. Those would be low aggression and high aggression. Now, his low aggression is defined as any occurrence of, but not limited to, squeezing, pinching, grabbing, and or kicking others. This level of aggression consists of a more single instance. This level of aggression is easily redirected back to the task at hand. 10 seconds must pass in between occurrences to count as another instance of aggression. And we do not keep track of attempts for low aggression. Now, Mark's high aggression behavior is defined as continued aggression that is a combination of at least two of these: biting, kicking, hair pulling, choking, hitting, digging nails into others, or headbutting others. Any aggression that breaks someone else's skin to the extent of needing first aid. This level of aggression most likely is not limited to the extent wherein additional staff is needed to intervene. 15 seconds must pass between occurrences to count as another instance of aggression. If Mark's aggression persists and he is unable to be redirected to use his file folders, a hold should be called. Now, Mark's behavior of concern right now is him being able to navigate through his device and let his family as well as us know what it is he wants and needs are. Being that Mark has only been using his AAC device for a little under 2 years, he is also just slightly over a year away from aging out of our program due to the state regulations. So this has been a more challenging process as of this moment. Now, based upon my client Mark and how we should go about implementing an intervention based on stimulus equivalence of teaching the verbal operant of tacting, is that we decided that we could go about this in a few different ways depending on what it is we are trying to teach him. Being that we are currently teaching him how to navigate his AAC and asking appropriately for attention, there are several ways in which we could do this. In one instance, we do a lot of net or natural environment teaching. Mark has a few people whom we would consider to be his preferred people. Though we do work on this skill throughout his speech sessions, we do this throughout the whole day when we see one of his preferred people in the same room as us. We give him the EO of Mark, who is it? He will then sign for his device. We will bring it to him, and then he will actively look for his people folder, and then he will click it, and then you can see his eyes actively looking for the people on the page. Once he clicks the person's name and the device says the person's name, the person he requests will then give him the biggest yell and tickles up both his arms. The intervention in this scenario is that when we place the EO for Mark of who is it, the stimulus class that this would fall under would be that of his highly preferred people. We teach this skill not only in net, but we do this as well during speech sessions. If Mark ever hits the wrong person's photo, we just go back into the folder and We either have him try again or we simply just click the right photo and say, oh, bud, I think you meant to click Rob instead of Ben. Now, for my next example, this would be teaching Mark tacting by means of doing work. And we would do some match to samples. Mark is one of my clients who does SBT or skills based training. We should begin, or we would begin by placing the EO. Okay, Mark, we're going to be all done. He would then sign for his way, and we would respond with, sorry, bud, not right now. He would then give me a high five. I would place the demand of put down. He would then place his iPad on either a chair or to wherever I would be pointing at. Once he did this, I would say, okay, Mark, let's go do some work. I would walk to a table and give him some cards. Almost set up like the card is almost like a bingo card. Um, and it has different pictures on it. And I would also, this would be accompanied by a bag full of items. I would place the demand of match, and he would then take the items out of the bag and he would match the items to their pictures. The intervention for this scenario is matching to a sample, and the stimulus class would be the various objects within the bag. We would teach us in a demand situation. This may be done in or out of the classroom, being that we walk around a majority of the day. We would have, or we do keep work bins in every single room of our school. This way, Mark doesn't begin to think that work can only be placed within the classroom and that he can see that at any moment um, he can actually be given a work demand in any place of the building we currently go to. Now, when you hear the term derived stimulus relations, this simply means a relation between two or more stimuli that is not directly trained. So, in other words, if you can match actual spaghetti to a picture of spaghetti and you see the word spaghetti and you know it means the actual food, you would then be able to distinguish that the word would also match the picture. There are three different types of derived stimulus. There's reflexivity, symmetry, and transivity. Reflexivity is when the learner learns when no conditioning is needed to learn. An example of this would be teaching your learner the word cat. You may be walking near a park, a cat walks by, and your learner says, cat. With my client Mark, he does this with especially food and people. He pays attention to which staff or peer has what food in our kitchen. He will walk around touching containers of food and then use his device to either state what the food is or who it belongs to. Symmetry is when you can connect two stimuli that refer to the same thing. For example, if you are teaching your client the word cat and they refer to a photo of the cat, and then they may see a photo of a cat and respond by saying cat. Now, with my client Mark, he does this during NET or the natural environment. While we walk throughout the building, he will randomly tack different things he sees. Transivity is when your client is able to distinguish between two different stimuli and how they can represent the same thing. For example, with my client Mark, during speech, we work on manding for his staff or any preferred staff within the building. When he sees a photo of them, he will go into his AAC device and click a name. When we are walking throughout the school and we happen to be in the same room as either of the staff or preferred person, we will say, who is it? He will then go into his people folder and click on who he thinks the person is. Mark has learned that from either seeing the person in the natural environment or within a photo. Ultimately, as he is tagging that person, and in two different ways, he will get the same result. Thank you for watching my presentation on Case Study 3. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.